Today, you are checking out episode 1 of a two-part episode where Alan and I get to interview Roy H. Williams. You're going to want to listen to every moment of this, and you're going to want to come back next week to pick up part 2.
The best thing that advertising can do is accelerate what was going to happen anyway.
Yeah.
You don't get to bring fiction to a good brand. You can bring exaggeration, you can bring amplification, but you don't get to bring truth. The truth is already there. When you find really, really, really interesting people, it's so easy to write great ads. And what I said was, yes, I cheat. I cannot make boring people interesting. You have to find genuinely interesting people that you genuinely like. And if you really like them, it's just not that hard to make other people like them too. A brand is an imaginary character that exists in the mind of the public just as much as the imaginary characters in movies and TV shows and best-selling fiction books. Nobody can see themselves clearly. It's hard to read the label when you're inside the bottle. And so what every business owner thinks should happen is always wrong.
Welcome to the $100 Million Mindset, the source for business owners who aspire to scale, grow, and reach their full potential. Whether you're aiming for 5 million, 10 million, or 100 million. Your hosts are Alan O'Neill, the Irish plumber, who scaled Abacus Plumbing and Cooling to over 100 million, and Tug of Love, Todd Liles, a coach to high-performing business leaders and the owner of Service Excellence, are going to help you think bigger, act smarter, and take your business to the next level.
Today's guest is a living legend, not just in marketing, but in shaping the soul of some of the most successful home service companies in America. Roy H. Williams is the mind behind the branding of successful companies like Gettle, Morris-Jenkins, Elmer's, Eco Plumbing, and so many more. But what makes Roy truly rare is this. He doesn't just build brands around himself. He builds brands around the truth of the people that lead those companies. Every brand is unique and every story is custom, and yet they all work. Today, we're exploring how the wizard does it. Roy, welcome to the show.
It's always good to be here, Todd, and it's good to meet Alan.
Yeah.
It's great to meet you, Roy. Roy, you said the brand is not what you want it to be. It's who you already are amplified. So Roy has helped shape radically different brands, from the funny, almost goofy voice of Elmer's to the warm and trusted tone of Morris-Jenkins. How does he do it? It starts with seeing people clearly. Roy doesn't impose an identity, he reveals it and then unwraps it in unforgettable language. Roy, how do you get inside someone's head and heart to find the essence of their brand?
Well, first you have to decide if you want to.
Right.
And so I've got a list of the 7 different ways that I cheat. And I'm going to publish these soon. It's like the 7 ways I've been cheating for over 40 years. And number 1, believe it or not, Alan, is after you meet somebody and spend a day with them, you ask yourself, do I want this person in my life?
Mm.
Because when you're the marketing guy and you're doing everything, there's no template. You're building everything around what really is. I mean, you don't get to bring fiction to a good brand.
Right.
You can bring exaggeration, you can bring amplification, but you don't get to bring truth. The truth is already there, and you just have to decide, would I enjoy this person being part of my life for decades?
Mm.
And if the answer is no, then I don't have a plan. My only plan is to get away,
Right.
run
Right.
like the
Right.
wind. But when you meet somebody and you go, I would like to have this person in my life. I like this person. Well, then it becomes very, very easy. You have to simply say, why do I like this person? Because I'll tell you this. I'm going to flip that around for a second. Anytime something really makes sense to you, it'll make sense to a lot of other people too, if you explain it to them. And if it doesn't make sense to you, don't try to make it make sense to other people, because it's just not going to make any sense.
Mm-hmm.
And so, as I said, you have to stay with what's already there. You have to stay with the truth. And the stories to be told about different people are as different as those people are.
Yes.
And so when you basically say, what are the first, say, 2 things that you notice about this person when you spend time with them? What's the first thing that you notice? And there will always be, if this is an interesting person, there will always be something that actually is contradictory. It's something you would not expect to also be a core defining characteristic of this person.
Mm-hmm.
You just wouldn't, you would go,
Right.
if they're this, there's no chance they're also going to be this other thing, but it will always be there unless they're just a really boring person. Boring people are predictable. Predictability is boring. And so when you find a really interesting person, you will see a conflicted identity. And you'll see two things that you wouldn't expect to find together. And when you latch onto those two things and you say, okay, now we're going to turn the volume up on both of those. And that makes a very, very, very interesting storyteller. And so first you have to find out what those two things are. They will always be there. If it's an interesting, fun person to be around, they will always be there.
Interesting.
Is that part of what you refer to as the character diamond?
Yeah. And when we say diamond, it's not like a diamond in a ring. It's a baseball diamond.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you're looking at a square divided into quadrants, it's an intersection graph. Okay. And if you think about it, the vertical is just two paired opposites, a pair of opposites. And the horizontal is a pair of opposites. And you can take any pair of opposites, put it on the vertical, and any other pair of opposites and put it on the horizontal, and the intersection graph suddenly makes sense. Those four quadrants will instantly tell you what belongs in the quadrant.
Right.
When you turn it up like a compass rose, we have, north, south, east, west.
Yeah.
And so it's really first, home plate, first base, second base, third base, and then home. And at second base, you start with the first thing you notice about a person, the thing you just can't miss. And then when you've realized what's the other thing that's equally important about this personality, and that goes down to home plate. Now that duality, that polarity, there's a lot of energy that comes from that. Now, what I'm talking about right now, the character diamond, I was taught this by David Freeman, who is like the most famous Hollywood screenwriting coach in history. I mean, I'm not going to bore you with unbelievable. I could go for an hour of all his accomplishments. He's the guy behind the scenes and all the most important video games out of Japan and all the most important movies, like 200 huge, huge, huge movies out of Hollywood. And I met him right after The Wizard of Oz was published. He called and he read it and he goes, oh, we need to know each other because we had discovered similar things, but coming at them from wildly different directions. So the whole thing about character diamonds, what I just explained, is not taught in any advertising school in the world. I mean, this is not part of advertising. This is part of fiction writing. This is part of creating really magnetically interesting characters in novels and television series, sitcoms or dramedies, and in major movies, and even among cartoons and video games. You can't have a predictable, interesting character. You always have to have kind of a conflicted, interesting character that is made of pairs of opposites. The north-south pair of opposites is what makes them interesting. The east-west pair of opposites is what makes them relatable. It's you connect with them on the horizontal.
Interesting and relatable.
Yeah.
That's interesting to me to hear that because you're the world's best at, you're the world's best. I'll say that definitively at getting to know someone and then building these brands and these stories around it. And I think a lot of people never can do that because they don't have the tools that you have. One of those tools, being a character.
They never met David Freeman and spent time with him.
Well, you spend time with lots and lots of interesting people.
Sure.
You read lots and lots of things. You're constantly studying. So just to kind of put things into perspective, earlier today, we had a chance to visit with Jonathan Bancroft.
Oh, wow. I love Jonathan.
It was great.
Oh, he's amazing.
And our homework was to read the book. So reading the book taught us two things. It taught us how Jonathan feels about Mr. Jenkins, and it taught us just as much about Mr. Jenkins as a human.
Right.
So to put things into perspective, what is it about Mr. Jenkins? What does his character diamond look like, if we don't mind?
Okay. Now I'm gonna dumb this down.
Please.
Okay. In essence, you have the original two characters. I made up an imaginary character named Bobby. Okay. But Dewey needed Bobby because Dewey is essentially Andy Griffith from the original Andy Griffith show. And so let me point something out. Anytime you do the work and you figure out what makes this person interesting. You cannot create a character diamond that doesn't already exist in literature or in movies or in TV shows. You know that you've created a good character diamond when after you've done the hard work and you're looking at it and you're going, okay, now, who is this? And you'll realize there's like 4, 5, 6 different characters from famous books or movies or TV series or whatever. You'll go, okay, and boom, 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 boom. And you go, okay, now, when you start studying those characters in these famous novels and TV shows and movies, now you understand how that character thinks, acts, speaks, and sees the world. And you can listen to the voices of all these other characters, and then you can, what you'll do when you study the books and the movies and the TV shows and the cartoons, you go, okay, this same character has been manifested in all these different voices of these other characters and all these body of work. And then you can say, when you saturate yourself with those characters, and remember, these screenwriters and these novelists, they leave out the parts that people skip. They only say high impact things in certain ways. So you educate yourself by studying these characters. So when I say Andy Griffith, who was Andy Griffith? Okay, he was unbelievably calm and patient.
Mm-hmm.
Unbelievably calm and patient. And he put up with an idiot, Barney Fife, right? And so he was wise, calm and patient, and he would put up with an idiot. Now, you also have to have a vulnerability, a weakness, or a flaw. Although it's never discussed and it's never published, and I'll never tell you what the vulnerability, weakness, or flaw is of any of the characters I've ever created. But if it isn't there, then you can't relate to them. You don't have to speak of it, but it's the things that are never said that reveal it. It's the subjects that are never talked about that kind of reveal. And it's at a very unconscious level. And so, like I said, this is a very multi-layered thing. Now, Bobby, just like Barney, was an idiot savant. He's, as a matter of fact, just another type of Forrest Gump. And so this what seems like this really strange, deeply flawed person actually does have some deep core strengths that you just don't see at first. And so with a character like Dewey, you see this incredibly wise, strong, patient figure. That's the first thing you notice. And his counterpart is somebody that's just really messed up. And they're just goofy and weird and just like, wow, how does this person even stumble through life? Because they're so messed up. And when you pair those together, it always works. Because the fact that Andy puts up with Barney makes you love Andy, right?
Right.
And so anybody that never saw the original Andy Griffith show, right, Mayberry RFD, that sort of thing, they have no idea what we're talking about. And so for anybody that's too young to have really known these characters, and so does anybody ever listen to these ads or watch these ads and go, I know what they're doing? Nope, never. Nobody ever sees it until you explain it to them. They go, oh yeah, I do. I kind of see that now, you see? And so that's a glimpse of the original Mr. Jenkins and Bobby. And then when he sent Bobby off to go to Hollywood and pursue his dream and gave him $100,000 for real gave him the $100,000.
Wow.
I mean, the news stations in Charlotte lost their mind. The phones were ringing off the wall. It ran one time during Monday Night Football in Charlotte. And the next morning, I got a call from the billboard company that has all the big digital billboards in Charlotte. And they said, they texted me, they didn't text, they emailed me a picture of a billboard that had the Morris-Jenkins logo on it. And it says, we will miss you, Bobby. And it had the Morris-Jenkins logo, and then it had the logo of the billboard company. And it was just, and they said, we want to put this on every digital board we've got for the next several days. Do we have permission to use this logo? I said, oh yeah.
How many millions of dollars?
Said, can you give us that permission? I said, I can give you the permission. Permission is granted. Yes, you can do this.
Wow.
And so then Dewey was interviewed by every major network station in Charlotte, given several minutes, and they're just all blown away. They said, no, wait a minute, that was just for TV, right? That was just for TV. It's like, no. Did you really give him $100,000? Yes, gave him $100,000. Because Bobby was a professional actor, And he had now been discovered and made wildly, wildly, wildly beloved and famous because of Dewey.
Hmm.
And he really thought he could have a shot at Hollywood. And so Dewey said, okay.
Wow.
And so he was retired, and everybody's going, oh my gosh, oh my gosh, oh my gosh. What are you going to do now that Bobby is gone? And I said, we invented Bobby. I said, Bobby was never the person you loved. He was just the colorful one that the reason you like and trust Mr. Jenkins is because he never rolled his eyes at Bobby or said anything snarky or demeaning or laughed at him or anything like that. And the rest of us would. With that character, we would just always be frustrated with him. And Dewey never got frustrated. Why? Because he doesn't.
Yeah.
That's the real true Dewey Jenkins. And I'm going, okay, I'm just going to allow people to see that side of Dewey. And so the next one, where would you go from there? It's really simple. The thing that followed up, Mr. Jenkins and Bobby, which ran for 6 or 7 years, 8 years, I don't know. It was Mr. Jenkins told me.
Mm-hmm.
And so now, knowing that Dewey was going to be kind of stepping off stage, and I said, we have to have something that can run for the next 200 years. And every ad would start with, we always had 9 different technicians in an ad. Now, when you have 600 employees, you don't have to use the same ones all the time, right?
Right.
You've always got new people that you can feature in these ads. And so one person, Mr. Jenkins told me, another person says, Mr. Jenkins told me, another person says, Mr. Jenkins told me, and then they finish what it was that Mr. Jenkins said. And then that is tied to the message, and then in 30 seconds, you're out. The whole thing goes full circle. And so this thing that Mr. Jenkins told these people, they remember, and they're now doing it. And the reason we're doing this is because Mr. Jenkins told us this, and this is who we are, and this is how we roll. And so that is sustainable forever. And so people are going, oh my gosh, Bobby's gone. Bobby was, blah, 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 so fun. And I said, nope. I said, really doesn't matter, because the whole thing was always the wisdom and the investment that Dewey Jenkins made in his people, and that real patience and that just very, very, very generous benefactor that basically would guide you, correct you, keep you on the path, and make you successful, which is why, and I know I'm rambling here, but it is impossible to hire anybody away from Morris-Jenkins. They're going, oh, no, I'm not leaving here. I am not leaving here. And so it's always voted the very best place to work in Charlotte every year. Best place to work.
So I've heard you say all these things.
My point is, and let me forgive me.
Yeah.
That's why it's so easy to write those ads. When you find really, really, really interesting people, it's so easy to write great ads. And what I said was, yes, I cheat. I cannot make boring people interesting. You have to find genuinely interesting people that you genuinely like. And if you really like them, it's just not that hard to make other people like them too. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense.
So I got 2 points that I want to turn over to you. Yeah. Point number 1, Alan, and for the listeners, to really understand this, if you haven't seen the episode with Jonathan Bancroft, go back and watch it. I've heard you say these things, and I'm like, yes, I believe you. I'm not believing you, but it was totally different listening to Jonathan talk about Dewey with this love. This is a guy that's been there from the beginning. And just the things that Jonathan says, it's like, no, I'm his son-in-law. He's never been mad.
Right.
I've never seen him raise his voice once in all the years of family and Jonathan going through cancer. The guy's never mad. He's never anxious. He is a calm, constant state. And even though I've not witnessed Mr. Jenkins doing that directly, here's a man that can't be any closer to him. So that's number 1.
That's right.
And number 2 is you pull that out. And here's where the second part is. Someone who I really respect in the sort of other side of the world was asking me questions about why we switched our brand over. And I said, well, because I hired the Wizards, they're going to build a brand around who I really am and who this company really is. And they wrote me back and said, oh, I always thought a brand should be built around who you're selling to, not who the owner of the business is. I'm going, I don't fault this person, but that's the way most marketers
think. Hang on. Say, I partially agree with the statement.
I partially too, but not all the way.
But not a brand, an ad. So the brand has to be true of the personality that you're going to invite into your home. And so the brand, if a brand is interesting, the brand has a personality. A brand is an imaginary character that exists in the mind of the public just as much as the imaginary characters in movies and TV shows and best-selling fiction books. Okay? Like Harry Potter is a fictional character, but you get to know these characters really well and you like these characters. And so a brand is a character. And if the brand is a character, it has to have a personality. I say Apple Computer has a personality. Dell Computer does not.
Mm-hmm.
And so you connect strongly with Apple, if you like Apple, at an emotional, relational level. But you don't do that with Dell. It is a commodity. It is a tool. It is an instrument that does a job. And so your perception of value, you might think Dell is a way better value. But you won't, Dell customers don't feel as strong of a connection, in my opinion. They don't feel as strong of a relationship, a sense of identification with the brand. So a brand is about the company. It is about what that company believes in and what that company stands for. That's where the relationship is. The ad, though, the ad should never be about you, your company, your product, or your service. Hey, Alan, here's a quarter. Go find an old payphone. Call your mom. Maybe she gives a crap because the rest of us don't. It's not about the company. The ad is always about the customer. Bad ads are about the company, you, your product, your service. Nobody cares. Good ads are about what your product or service is going to do to change the daily world of that customer. How are you? We're all in one business. There's one business. You know what everybody's business is? To make someone happy.
Yeah.
No matter what your product is, no matter what your service is, your business is to make someone happy. And so who are you going to make happy and how are you going to make them happy? Tell them how you're going to make them happy. The ad is about them. It's not about you. But the brand is about you.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Total
Yes,
sense.
totally.
And so, like I said, I partially agree with the statement. No, a brand isn't about the customer. If every brand was about the customer, every brand would be identical. But wait a minute. I happen to know who you're quoting, and that's why we see so much of the same over and over.
That's great, Roy.
Does that make sense?
You know what's interesting, Roy, is you use the analogy of Apple and Dell. I have heard dozens and dozens of people say, I'm an Apple guy. I've never heard anyone say I'm a Dell guy, right? I mean, there's a loyalty to that brand that's unparalleled. I had a curiosity question, Roy. So you said, you look for these two characteristics in people. One is pretty obvious, what do you like about them?
Mm-hmm.
Are you always able to find the polar opposite on day one?
No.
It takes a while. Yeah.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is, remember, those documents, the character diamonds, are actually internal documents, and they're never to be published. It's kind of like to publish a character diamond is to basically reveal the punchline of the joke before you tell it.
Yeah.
And so you want people to perceive these things in their heart, but they can never exactly put their finger on it. See what I mean?
Yeah.
And so it was actually Robert Louis Stevenson who said, the essence of any art is on the surface where we can see its beauty and its meaning. He says, but if you pry down below, you'll be appalled at the strings and pulleys.
Wow.
And so, like I says, I'm not going to tell you everybody's character diamond because you would be appalled at the strings and pulleys. And I'm saying, nope, beneath the brushstrokes and beneath the pitch, key, tempo, musical contour, musical interval, and rhythm, the 6 sublanguages of music, beneath, this beautiful melody, this amazing song you just can't get out of your head because you love it. Well, if you reverse engineer that into all of its little components, yeah, it's kind of a mechanical thing. And so you want it to be judged by its impact. You don't want to actually reveal to the public the strings and pulleys, the levers and buttons down beneath all of that. And so I'll teach it at Wizard Academy to the students who come there to learn these things. But no, I'm not going to tell you any more about character diamonds.
Do you know who I think you're most obvious character is?
Who?
I never told you this, but I think it's Leonardo da Vinci. Even when you walk by and you've seen the paintings in there, you're like, to me that's, and I think I've just maybe like sort of solidified this in my mind. But you have a very strong artistic side, but you have a very detailed scientific backing. You know the reasons why you feel the way you feel. And it's, to me, it's most like Leonardo da Vinci. You can do the art and you can do the science, and I think that's pretty cool.
Weirdly, and I'm not saying this because I'm necessarily proud of it, but you're by far from the first person to make that comment. And so whatever,
Wow.
well, I'll tell you why, is when you study all of the arts, all of them, your whole life, and Sean has seen the warehouses of, I mean, it's terrible. I've got an addiction. People say, well, he's not a hoarder because this stuff is way too cool. It's not junk, but at the same time, the sculptures, the paintings, the books. And when you say, okay, now why does this impact me? Why does it impact the world? How is it doing that to us? And then when you reverse engineer it, you are looking for the strings and pulleys, the buttons and the levers. And when you see it and you go, oh, this is really fascinating how this all works together. Well, then you can do consciously what the true geniuses of the world have always done unconsciously.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's really what I've done my whole life, is said these really amazing people, just from some unconscious raw talent, they did this and they just rocked the world. But if I reverse engineer it and I try to figure out, okay, there's all these people have this same thing in common. What is that they're all doing? And if you look at it long enough, you'll figure it out and you'll see patterns. And then you can, as a matter, the 3-day Magical Worlds Communications Workshop is 3 whole days of kind of unveiling, these are the fundamental repetitive techniques used by all the artists in all the arts. There are writers who write exactly the way that Claude Monet painted.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
And those comparisons of the visual arts and the auditory arts, even poets, you can put them into groups because they all use the same techniques. Kind of visual technique also be done in music? Absolutely. It's very easy to demonstrate. Can it also be done in poetry? Yes. Can it also be done in storytelling? Yes. And once you see what those cascading things are, then yeah, you can go, okay, I can create that impact consciously. The real geniuses did it unconsciously. But when you can do it consciously by studying those geniuses, then yeah, you can create the same impact, but you don't want to explain it to the general public.
Yeah.
I'm telling you as much as I'm comfortable telling you.
Sure.
Mhm.
But
No worries.
hopefully you'll know that I'm not going to go
No,
too deep.
That's good.
Roy, what happens when the story someone wants to tell isn't the story the market believes?
No business owner, including me, nobody can see themselves clearly. It's hard to read the label when you're inside the bottle. And so what every business owner thinks should happen is always wrong. 100% of the time. It's just as true of me as it is of anybody else in the world.
Yeah.
And the people that have spoken truth into my life, I've never forgotten it. Because I go, Roy, what you really need to be thinking about is not this, but this other thing. I'm going, boy, that's right. It's like that person just is like, wow, pal, you're absolutely right. And I thank you for making me understand that, because I've been looking at it the wrong way. And so that idea, the first thing you have to have with a client is enough of a relationship that they will trust you and they will believe you and they will accept the fact that this thing that never really instinctively occurred to them is correct. Now, back to Dewey. Dewey very, 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 very easily could have been a great marketer. But again, he could have done what I did for him to anybody in the world except himself.
Mm.
And so he was really astoundingly talented, which is why he would very quickly understand when I said, okay, here's what I think we should do. And he'd go, oh, yeah, that makes sense. Because he could see it, because he was letting me just be the person on the outside looking in.
Yep.
But he was smart enough that whenever I would explain it, he would immediately get it. Now, other times, some people just have to go by just trust in my intentions and my experience, and they don't get it, but they go ahead and do it because what they were previously doing wasn't getting them the impact they wanted.
Right.
And so until a person has decided that they're willing to let somebody else steer the ship, you can't help them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Can't
I
help 'em.
agree.
That's the pool and the vamp philosophy.
Yeah, it is. Absolutely.
So we have one of the ads from Morris-Jenkins. We have one of the ads from Morris-Jenkins, and I intentionally didn't go with Bobby, nor did I go with what Mr. Jenkins told me.
Okay.
I went with one that has a jingle because I like it. It's no deeper than that. So, Alex, would you show it, please?
It's that time again.
It's time for us to come and go gently, gently. It's time for us to come and go gently, gently. Compressors dry out during winter months and need to be brought back gently.
For just $89, a Morris-Jenkins technician will wash your outside unit and bring it into service
Gently.
gently.
Morris-Jenkins comes and goes.
Gently, gently.
All right. Yeah. That's what's called a crazy Ivan. Do you remember, Alan, the movie The Hunt for Red October?
Yes.
Okay. And so I actually took that description from that movie because the character is telling the captain of the ship, okay, he said, get off my ship. This is stupid. And I'm not going to listen to you anymore. And he goes, well, listen, I'm going to tell you one thing. It's the bottom of the hour. And so he's going to make at the top of the hour, he swings left to see who's behind him, makes a big circle. And at the bottom of the hour, he swings right to see who's behind him. And he goes, he's about to make a big right-hand loop to see if anybody's behind him. We have to stay right behind him like this. And so they're watching, and all of a sudden, the ship they're following, the Red October, turns in a big circle to see if anybody's following him. They turn really tight behind it so that he can't ever see him. And then you find out later, oh, he was just guessing. He was pretending he knew this for sure, but he was just guessing. And so anytime you get the tiniest bit worried that there is a pattern that's beginning to develop that people will perceive, you have to disrupt the pattern. Now, in a song, you'll hear a break in the music and the drums will come in and mess things up and everything will collapse, then they'll rebuild it. There's the big hit songs, they do this over and over and over. And so they will never let it become a jinga, 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 jinga song. They'll always collapse and rebuild, collapse and rebuild, collapse and rebuild. Well, that collapse and rebuild, I call it Crazy Ivan. And so, yeah, I remember the actual, okay, man, I'm embarrassed to tell true stories because it's when you begin to see, I am nuts, right? Actually nuts. Because once in a while, I'll wake up in the middle of the night from a deep sleep and I'll be singing something in my head. And imagine you're repeating something over and over and over and over and over so you won't forget it.
Mm-hmm.
And as you slowly wake up, you're listening to this voice in your head and it's your own voice. And you're repeating this thing so that you remember it from deep sleep. And so I'm listening to this and I'm going, what is it I'm hearing here? And I'm listening to it and I'm really sleepy. And I finally hear what it is. And then I realize, I have to write this down. Because if I go back to sleep,
It's gone.
It's gone.
I will remember the next morning there was something and it'll never come back. So in the old days, I would get up and I would write it. These days, I just go upstairs, open the door to my broadcast studio and record it. And I actually woke up in the middle of the night and I knew exactly what we needed to do. And so I had, that morning, I had a call with Dewey and with Jonathan. And I told both of them, I said, all right, now guys, I said, this is going to sound nuts. And Jonathan will tell you, if you ask him, he'll go. And Dewey was even like, hey, none of this it didn't even make sense to Dewey. And Jonathan's going, I'm just going to have to just sit back and watch this because I have no idea what you're trying to describe. And I said, in the movie, The King and I, okay, with Yul Brynner and I forget who else was in that. These little geisha girls, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Two little maids from something, are we? Dun, 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 dun,
Oh, yeah.
They're kind of dancing on their tiptoes in a
Yeah.
little circle, you know? And so these little geishas dancing in a circle singing this little tune. And nobody realizes is that whole thing is the melody from Glow Little Glowworm Glitter, Glitter, Glow Little Glowworm Glitter, Glitter. It's time for us to come and go gently, gently. It's time for us to come and go gently, gently. That song is in the public domain. So you don't have to pay anybody any copyrights. You're free to use it. And so that melody is a sticky melody. It's just sticky. Everybody knows when you say glow, little glow, glitter, glitter, they can sing it even though they hadn't heard it since they were 4 years old, right? Does that make, do you remember?
Yeah,
do you
yeah,
remember the song?
totally remember it.
And I said, so
Yeah.
guys, we're going to have all of our technicians kind of doing this little thing. And then whenever they say, it's time for us to come and go gently, gently. I says, whenever the people talk about gently, and I actually made a video of this on my cell phone, I said, you say gently, and you push your hands downward, gently. And I said, and you even bend your knees. And so anytime you say gently, and they said, all right, we don't know why, but I said, oh, it'll work. It'll be awesome. And so Dewey was kind of going, and I was reading it to him, and they're going, no, wait a minute. I showed him, I pulled up some YouTube videos, and I showed him this video on YouTube. I showed him this video on YouTube, and Casey Welch was there too. She's a genius. And Casey is the director and the producer of all those TV ads.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, so making them amazing. I just wrote the script. That's all I did.
Mm-hmm.
I just said, Casey, here's the idea. She would figure out how to make it come to life. I mean, she's amazing. She's still there. And, Wrench Group really should cherish her because she could go to work for any company in the world, company in the world, as a very highly paid director.
Director, yeah.
And so what happens is she saw it. She got it. You know what I mean? She could always understand the deal. And so Dewey and Jonathan said, this just sounds nuts, but you guys, Casey, do you understand? Well, she said, I got this. I know exactly what to do. And so they both just stepped back on that one and said, all right, we're just going to have to wait to see how this turns out. And the last time I checked on YouTube, there's like two different not versions, but it's been posted in two different posts. And collectively, it's over 2 million views. And remember, it's a local company in Charlotte, North Carolina.
It might be over that. One of the Morris-Jenkins ads I saw, I don't remember which one it is. I think it was like 200 million views. It was a ridiculous
Oh,
number.
that's wild.
I'll find which one it is.
Well,
and
the
I'll
point
get back
is
to you.
that,
I think, I could be wrong, but I think that's right.
okay, ads have to be new, surprising, and different, or they're not interesting. And, Alan, entertainment is the only currency that will attract and hold human attention. You can buy attention and you can buy customer engagement with entertainment. So when you're going to ask a person, quit thinking about what you're thinking about and think what I want you to think about. And so you get their attention. Getting a person's attention is not that hard. Keeping their attention is unbelievably hard.
Yeah.
And so that's engagement.
Mm-hmm.
And what you're looking for is engagement. And so when a person says, I enjoyed that so much, I want to see it again and again and again and again and again. And that's what makes a hit song. And as I said, predictability is the silent assassin of advertising. And so whenever you find interesting people and you really believe in them and they're really amazing and they have wonderful intentions, go to work for them.
Mm-hmm.
And you'll always succeed. And if you think that you're some special little snowflake that can make any idiot successful, then you are going to have a very spotted career.
Yeah.
You're going to have the occasional success, but you're going to have a long trail of train wrecks behind you because you cannot make a person successful who isn't capable of being successful without your help. And the only thing a good marketing person to do is accelerate what was going to happen anyway.
Mm-hmm.
That's wonderful. Yeah. Roy, what percentage of companies that come to you for help do you accept? Like, is it 50-50? Is it?
I'm cheating like crazy. We have 84 partners now. And Todd and I were comparing notes the other day between Service Excellence and Wizard of Ads. And it's only about 40%, maybe 35% of our total client list are home service companies.
Mm-hmm.
But between the two of us, we had 303 different home services companies that we're working with.
Wow.
And so I've got tons of partners, and he has all of his huge team of geniuses working with home service companies. And we've added like 5 more, so now it's like 308. But the point is, I have partners that when I meet somebody, I'm going, no, this is not right for me, but I always know who it would be right for.
Right.
And I'll
right.
just say, no, I said this personality type that there would be too many sparks and too much frustration. I go, I know exactly who would be the right lead partner for them. So somewhere, 3 times out of 4, there's a fit somewhere within the partnership. And so the president of the company and myself, every day, he talks about the people that scheduled a meeting with him to be interviewed. And then he'll spend 45 minutes with them. And then he will call me and just give me the download upon his read. And he's really good. And he gets a sense of who these people are and what they need, what their blind spots are. And after he tells me the whole story, he says, who do you think's a good fit? And I'll tell him, and it's usually the exact same person he was thinking.
Wow.
About one time out of 10, one time out of 9 maybe, we'll have a difference of opinion. And he'll say, okay, why did you say that person? And I'll tell him. And he goes, oh, you knew something I didn't know about that person. So maybe he'll switch to me. Just as often I switch to him because he'll maybe remind me of something about the person that he likes as the lead partner for that account. But there's a long answer to a short question. The odds of me working with people are almost zero. The odds of finding a partner for them that makes sense is usually about 3 out of 4. About 1 out of 4 people are just not a fit for any of us.
Right. Makes sense. Makes sense. So what was your process working with Dewey Jenkins, Roy?
All right. We had a standing appointment every Friday morning, and it's the appointment I currently have with Aaron Gaynor from Eco. And so Aaron has Dewey Jenkins' old spot.
Mm-hmm.
And we would get together, me and Jonathan and Dewey, every Friday morning for an hour. And Dewey would always begin by telling me good and happy things that happened that week. Whenever Dewey says celebrate, 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 that is true to the bottom of his soul. So the first thing he would tell you is about wonderful, wonderful things that were happening that was 100% true, no exaggeration.
So what was your process working with Dewey Jenkins, Roy?
All right. We had a standing appointment every Friday morning, and it's the appointment I currently have with Aaron Gaynor from Eco. And so Aaron has Dewey Jenkins' old spot.
Mm-hmm.
And we would get together, me and Jonathan and Dewey, every Friday morning for an hour. And Dewey would always begin by telling me good and happy things that happened that week. Whenever Dewey says celebrate, 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 that is true to the bottom of his soul. So the first thing he would tell you is about wonderful, wonderful things that were happening that was 100% true, no exaggeration. And he would say, and here's what's happening right now, and here's why we're excited. And then I would say, well, here's what I've been thinking. And sometimes I will never send over a script for a person to read and then pass it around to a bunch of people and get everybody else's thoughts and then tell me what they thought about it. I will always read it to them over Zoom or over the phone. I will read it to them so they hear it the way that I hear it in my head. It's a TV ad or a radio ad, doesn't matter. I'll read it to them. And only then, after they've heard me do it, will I email it to them. So they don't get to see it until first they've heard it the way that the customer's going to hear it. The way the customer's going to hear it. So they're going to react to it the way that a customer would react, because you judge things differently in writing than you do when you hear it. And it's a whole different process, wildly different process in the mind. And so when a person reads something, they're always far more analytical and they're looking for flaws. But when they're listening, they're not doing that. It's a whole different mechanism.
Oh, that makes sense.
And so what happens is I train all the partners. Never just fax over an email, fax over a script and what do you think? Because you're going to make you do idiot things. You're going to make you change the best parts of it.
Right.
And so you have to sell it to them by voice. And then when they're excited, then you show them the script and immediately point out why you did what you did, the choices that you made and why you put them in exactly that sequence. And an intelligent person, once they've heard it and they feel good about it, and then you show them, these are the decision points. This is why this was done the way it was done. in this exact sequence, and that's why these words were used instead of these words. Then they always go, oh, yeah, this is great. This makes perfect sense. Done. And now they take ownership of it. And you know what I don't have to do? Is explain it to the 600 employees.
Yeah.
Right.
Because everybody goes, well, I don't think that's what I would have done.
Mm-hmm.
And when the owner of the company and the general manager, the president of the company, both totally believe in it because it was explained to them and they get it. And they're going, no, here's why we're doing it. And then they explain to the people,
Right.
here's why we're doing it. And then people go, okay. And then it solves that problem. But if you ever, as a matter of fact, Alan, I'm working on a Monday morning memo right now. You know what it's called?
Mm-mm.
Anything with two heads is a monster.
So true.
And anytime a person doesn't have the confidence and the absolute authority or the unconditional authority to say absolutely yes, if they do not have the confidence and unconditional authority to say absolutely yes, and I don't have to check with anyone,
Right.
they can say yes.
Yeah.
If I'm not working directly with that person, I'm not working with that person. And so the reason that I only work with entrepreneurs and owner-operators, and I have spoken for a lot of big Fortune 100 companies, and I will go consult and train, will never take them as clients. You know why? Turf wars. Every department is in a turf war with all the other departments. They have overlapping authority.
Mm-hmm.
And you couldn't get them to agree on what time it is if they were all looking at the same clock.
Right.
And so it's like, I'm not putting my dog in that fight. So when you start talking to business owners that have absolute authority, they had unconditional authority to say absolutely yes, life is so wonderful. And you get to have a lot of fun. You get to experience big growth. That's another way that I cheat.
Right.
Never work for somebody that feels like they have to check with somebody else before they say, yes, let's do this.
Mm.
Is this making sense?
Yeah,
Absolutely.
total sense. Can you ever, Roy, watch TV and watch ads without getting upset at the quality?
No.
Of the...
As a matter of fact, I don't watch ads. I don't listen to ads.
Yeah.
We buy many hundreds of millions of dollars worth of radio ads every year.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't listened to the radio in 25 years.
Wow.
I can't stand it.
Yeah.
And people think, well, you're a radio guy. Not me.
Mm-hmm.
I'm an advertising guy. And the reason I don't listen to ads or watch ads is I don't want to be polluted by it. Because they are crap.
That's
and
what
anytime I absolutely see one, it just like goes, oh, I just want to lay down and put a cold rag on my head. Are there some genius ads out there? Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And my partners, when there's a true genius ad out there, they will capture it and send it to me because they know what good ads are. And I'm saying, it makes me upset and sad.
Mm-hmm.
And so I just don't do it. Same reason I don't watch the news.
As I'm listening to you here, I'm thinking to myself, how could he possibly look at? Because I'm the same. I look at ads on TV and I go, oh my God, who agreed to pay for that? Like, and I'm just thinking, with all the knowledge inside your head, Roy, you must be losing your mind if you watch
No.
TV.
Tell you what, you gotta get your sugar from your own sugar bowl. And for me, I read relentlessly. When I'm not writing, I'm reading. When I'm not reading, I'm writing. And so when you read only basically, if you hadn't won the Nobel Prize in Literature or the Pulitzer Prize in Literature, I'm not reading your stuff.
Wow.
You have to be an unbelievably celebrated writer for me to be willing. And I don't read nonfiction.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody says, oh, have you ever read this? Nah, I don't read nonfiction books. You know why? I don't want to be a parrot. I don't want to say what has already been said.
Right.
And so it's like, nope. If everybody's raving about a book, well, I don't need to read that because I'm just going to be quoting that guy.
Mm-hmm.
And so everybody is always saying, well, do you know these people in advertising? Nope, don't know anybody in advertising. Have you read all these books? Nope, never read any of them. And then they go, well, how do you come up with this stuff? By reading great literature and by studying great art and by listening to the most highly impactful music, the music that just surpassed the test of time. You know what I mean?
Yes.
And then you figure out, okay, how are these people doing this to us? What is it we all instinctively agree on that we all love these songs, these books, these TV shows, these movies, these characters? What is it we're agreeing on? Because we never agreed to agree. We just all, huge masses of people all instantly love it. How are they doing that? And so when you study that, You can have a wonderful time and make a great deal of money and build some companies.
So Alan and I also had a chance to speak with Ellen Rohr, and Ellen told me a story, and she didn't tell me the story in our conversation. She told me the story prior. She wanted me to ask you about it. She's like, I still to this day don't know if this was a technique of persuasion for Roy or if it just is really how it happened. I said, okay. I said, well, tell me what the story is. This is what she said. She said, you were working on the brand for Jim and John and Ellen,
Right.
Benjamin Franklin.
Right.
And she said that always impressed with your approach and everything that you know. You spent a day building and waiting to do the reveal. And then you do the reveal. Benjamin Franklin, the thrifty plumber.
No.
Well, I'm just going to tell you what she said.
All right.
Because it could be totally wrong.
Right.
And she said that everybody was like, the thrifty plumber. And she said that John goes, well, Roy, you got anything else? And then you go, I've been toying with this other thing. Benjamin Franklin, the punctual plumber. And she's like, oh my God, it's like everybody in the room lit up. And this is what she told me, whether her memory is slightly altered or not. She said, to this day, like we talked about it, it's like to this day, I don't know if he always wanted to present the punctual plumber and he gave us the thrifty plumber first because the punctual plumber was it.
Okay. But I remember it slightly different. And I might be remembering my intentions more clearly than my words.
Okay.
And so I'm not disputing her memory of it. But whenever I say glow, little glowworm, glimmer is in the public domain, so is Benjamin Franklin.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Now, what's called meter is the rhythm created by the accented, the stressed and unstressed syllables. Okay, so the natural pronunciation of words, even if they don't rhyme, if a rhythm is created, okay, it makes a sentence musical. It's like BMW, the ultimate driving machine. My client did not commit this crime, and so it just tumbles off the tongue. And so anapestic meters, there's about 24 different poetic meters, but anapestic meter is 2 light stresses followed by a heavy third stress. Well, the sea is so full of a number of fish, if a fellow is patient, he might get his witch, and that's why I think I'm not such a fool when I sit here and fish in McElligot's pool. Dr. Seuss he sold hundreds and hundreds of millions of books, and we wrote every book in anapestic meter. Okay. And then 'twas the night before Christmas, and all through the house not a creature was stirring, not even a mouse.
Yeah.
Anapestic meter. It's also called galloping meter because it's easy to do anapestic meter incredibly quickly. All right. And so Benjamin Franklin, the punctual plumber, is meter. Now, I remember it was always going to be Benjamin Franklin, the punctual plumber. I think I was misunderstood when I was explaining the face of Benjamin Franklin, the personality of Benjamin Franklin, the legend of Benjamin Franklin stands for several things, right? And one of which was a penny saves, a penny earned.
Yeah.
And that was, he wrote a thing called Poor Richard's Almanac. And this was like 1758 when he started writing Poor Richard's Almanac. Most people don't realize that Benjamin Franklin made his fortune. He was a printer's apprentice, and then he became a printer. And so he printed the newspaper that basically, in Philadelphia, that became the thing that created the news of democracy and colonial unification and all this stuff. And he also sold printing supplies. He would teach other people, all the other printers in the colonies were taught how to do printing by Benjamin Franklin. And they weren't exactly franchises, but they bought all of their supplies from Benjamin Franklin. And so he basically was making money on every newspaper in every town in all 13 colonies. And that was how he made this huge fortune that allowed him to be, allowed him the freedom of time to be a founding father. He had the $100 million mindset. Okay.
Right.
And so anyway, I said, so he stood for all these different things. And I said, so he was absolutely thrifty and he did not waste money. Okay. And so I wasn't trying to get them to say the thrifty plumber. I don't think I ever used those words. But everybody thought I was going to land this deal about thrifty. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't. Okay. But they leaped to this conclusion, I think, on their own. So no, it wasn't intentional. It wasn't intentional. But I very often take too long to make my point, and people arrive at several wrong conclusions along the way. That's not contrived. I just take too long to tell a story.
I actually think it worked in your favor because she told me, she goes, I don't know how long it took, but she said there was a side conversation where before you revealed the punctual plumber, they're going, if this is where we're going, this isn't it. We can't be the thrifty plumbers. And she's like, Todd, I think it's the most genius level move he did. But I don't know if it was intentional or I said, well, I'll ask him. So I'll make sure she gets the story.
No. What I said is, I have relationships with people that do that and they're super, super good at it. And for 3 of them I can think of, all of whom I love these people, they'll give you 2 options and then a third option. The third option is the one they know you're going to want.
Mm.
But the first 2 are just to demonstrate they're giving you more than one to choose from. I never actually did that. But whenever you're naming the characteristics of this character, this personality, Benjamin Franklin, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I have a tiny little, it's not remorse, it's not regret, and I'm not actually troubled by it. But remember, people tend to call it Ben Franklin plumbing. Nope. It's Benjamin Franklin, the punctual plumber. Because only Benjamin Franklin, the punctual plumber, is musical. Okay?
Yes.
And so when you just make it Ben Franklin plumbing, now you're just left with the face that's on the $20 bill. And I'm going, so Ben Franklin is not Benjamin Franklin, the punctual plumber.
Mm-hmm.
And so I meant it to always be referred to as one thing, but I exited before having the opportunity to actually install the brand throughout all of the franchise partners. Yeah.
Got it.
Hey, thanks so much for watching the show this week. Head over to toddliles.com/mindset to get the show notes. Please make sure to like, subscribe, and follow so you never miss a new episode of the show. And if you enjoyed this episode, then share it. It really helps us get the word out. You've been watching the $100 Million Mindset with Alan O'Neill and Toxic Luxury Todd Liles.